Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly climb the ladder of success, while others, equally gifted, find themselves spinning their wheels in the same spot year after year? The answer might surprise you. It's not about having the right connections, being born into privilege, or even raw talent. It's about something far simpler, yet incredibly powerful: the compound effect of small, daily habits. Let me tell you about Alex, a young man whose transformation will completely shift how you think about achieving your dreams. His story takes place in the heart of America, in a small town called Millbrook, nestled between rolling hills and endless cornfields in rural Ohio. This is a story that could change everything for you. So stick around until the end, because I'm going to share the exact habits that turned Alex from a chronic underachiever into someone whose success story became legendary in his community. Alex Thompson was 22 years old and stuck. Despite graduating from high school with decent grades and having big dreams about making his mark on the world, he found himself working part-time at the local hardware store, living in his childhood bedroom, and watching his former classmates post updates about their exciting careers and adventures on social media. Every night, he'd lie in bed scrolling through these updates, feeling that familiar knot in his stomach, wondering where he'd gone wrong.
The frustrating part was that Alex wasn't lazy by nature. He had bursts of motivation that would hit him like lightning. He'd suddenly decide to start a business, sign up for online courses, or commit to getting in shape. But these bursts never lasted. Within a week or two, the initial excitement would fade, life would get in the way, and he'd find himself right back where he started, sometimes feeling worse than before. What Alex didn't realize was that he was living in what I call the motivation trap. He was waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect level of motivation to make his move. But perfection never came, and neither did lasting success. Everything changed on a crisp autumn morning when Alex was walking to work earlier than usual. He noticed something that stopped him in his tracks. An older gentleman, probably in his 70s, was outside the small house on Maple Street doing what appeared to be a very deliberate morning routine. The man was methodically stretching, then doing push-ups, followed by what looked like meditation or prayer.
Alex found himself curious enough to take a different route home that evening, timing it to walk past the same house. Sure enough, there was the same man, this time tending to a remarkably organized garden, reading under a porch light and writing in what appeared to be a journal. After a few days of observing this routine, Alex's curiosity got the better of him. He approached the man, who introduced himself as Robert Mitchell, a retired Marine and former high school principal. When Alex asked about his daily routine, Robert smiled and invited him to sit on the porch steps. "Young man," Robert said, "I've learned something in my 73 years that I wish someone had taught me when I was your age. Success isn't built on grand gestures or waiting for the perfect moment. It's constructed one small brick at a time, laid consistently, day after day, even when you don't feel like it." Alex felt skeptical. This seemed too simple. But what about talent? What about opportunities? What about having the right connections? Robert chuckled. "Those things can help, sure, but I've seen plenty of talented people with great connections end up disappointed because they never developed the discipline to capitalize on their advantages. And I've seen ordinary people with modest beginnings achieve extraordinary things because they understood the power of compound growth through consistent action." That conversation planted a seed in Alex's mind that began growing over the following days. He started paying attention to the successful people in his town: the pharmacist who had built a thriving independent practice, the woman who had grown a small catering business into a regional restaurant chain, even his former high school teacher who had written 3 published novels while maintaining her day job. When Alex looked closer, he noticed patterns. These successful individuals weren't necessarily the most naturally gifted or the ones who had started with the most advantages. They were the ones who showed up consistently, who had developed systems and routines that moved them forward even when motivation was low. Inspired by this revelation, Alex decided to try an experiment. Instead of waiting for a massive wave of motivation or the perfect comprehensive plan, he would start with something so small it felt almost ridiculous. He chose to wake up just 15 minutes earlier each day and spend that time reading books about personal development and business. The first week was brutal. His body fought against the earlier wake-up time, and 15 minutes felt simultaneously too short to accomplish anything meaningful and too long when all he wanted was more sleep. But he remembered Robert's words about consistency mattering more than intensity, so he persisted. By the end of the first month, something interesting happened. Waking up earlier had become automatic. More importantly, those accumulated 15-minute sessions had resulted in him finishing 2 complete books, something he hadn't done in years. The knowledge he was gaining began shifting his perspective and confidence. Encouraged by this small victory, Alex added another habit. He decided to spend 10 minutes each evening writing down 3 things he had learned that day and 1 action he would take the next day to move closer to his goals. Again, it seemed almost too simple to matter, but he committed to the process. As weeks turned into months, Alex began experiencing what felt like magic, but was actually the predictable result of compound growth. The books he was reading led him to discover online courses that aligned with his interests in digital marketing. The daily reflection and planning helped him identify patterns in his thinking and behavior that had been holding him back. 6 months into his new routine, Alex noticed something remarkable happening. His part-time supervisor at the hardware store mentioned that he seemed different, more focused and confident. A customer struck up a conversation about Alex's observations about local business trends, which led to an offer to help with their small company's social media marketing. This side project began generating income, but more importantly, it was giving Alex real-world experience and building his reputation in the community. The daily reading habit had evolved into deeper research into marketing trends. The evening reflection had evolved into strategic planning and goal setting. By the end of his first year of consistent small habits, Alex had built a freelance marketing consultancy that was generating enough income for him to move into his own apartment and reduce his hours at the hardware store. He was no longer the same person who had felt stuck and frustrated just 12 months earlier. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. There were days when Alex didn't feel like reading, days when he wanted to skip his evening reflection, days when he questioned whether these small actions were making any difference. But by this point, the habits had become so ingrained that skipping them felt more uncomfortable than doing them. Robert, who had become an informal mentor, explained to Alex that this was the true power of habit formation. When good habits become automatic, he said, success becomes inevitable. You're no longer relying on willpower or motivation, which are limited resources. You're operating on autopilot in the direction of your goals. 2 years after beginning his experiment with small habits, Alex had built his consultancy into a 6-figure business. He had been invited to speak at local business organizations about digital marketing strategies. He had developed expertise that made him valuable to companies throughout the region. But perhaps most importantly, Alex had developed unshakable confidence in his ability to create positive change in his life. He understood that success wasn't mysterious or dependent on luck. It was the predictable result of consistent action aligned with clear intentions. Today, Alex teaches other young professionals in Millbrook and surrounding communities about the power of small habits. His message is simple but profound. You don't need to completely overhaul your life to create dramatic change. You need to identify small, sustainable actions that align with your goals and commit to doing them consistently, especially when you don't feel like it. The habits that transformed Alex's life weren't extraordinary. 15 minutes of daily reading, 10 minutes of evening reflection and planning. These activities might seem too simple to create meaningful change, but their power lies not in their individual impact, but in their compound effect over time. Your future self is being shaped by the small choices you make today. The question isn't whether you have enough time or energy for massive changes. The question is whether you're willing to start small, start now, and trust the process of compound growth to carry you toward the life you really want. Success doesn't require you to be exceptional. It requires you to be consistent.